It is finally that time. Let's discuss buying and selling of magic items in 5th edition. There's a lot of mysticism, annoyance, complaints, and other things regarding magic items, buying and selling them in 5th edition, and I'm here to hopefully dispel some of the problems and questions with that, point you to the rules that do exist, and then possibly give you at least one alternative to how to make it probably the way you're thinking of it in your game. So if you want to see how that's going to go, stay tuned. What you buying? Probably not much. What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here. And let's go over to D&D Beyond, where we're going to look at a couple different books and some YouTube comments and some other stuff. So we're in the magic item section, chapter 7 of the Dungeon Master's Guide. And there's a section here on rarity where it talks about it here. And it shows these values that people get upset about, myself included, but we're going to talk about that, right? These very swingy ranges. So it says, so this is the important part that I feel like people are unaware of. So let's talk about it, or confused about. Unless you decide your campaign works otherwise. Official 5th edition rules, folks. Most magic items are so rare that they aren't available for purchase. Common items, such as a potion of healing, can be procured from an alchemist, herbalist, or spellcaster. Doing so is rarely as simple as walking into a shop and selecting an item from a shelf. The seller might ask for a service rather than coin. In a large city with an academy of magic or a major temple, buying and selling magic items might be possible at your discretion. If your world includes a large number of adventurers engaged in retrieving ancient magic items, trade in these items might be more common. Even so, it's likely to remain similar to the market for fine art in the real world, with invitation-only auctions and a tendency to attract thieves. Selling magic items is difficult in most D&D worlds, primarily because of the challenge of finding a buyer. Plenty of people might like to have a magic sword, but a few of them can afford it. Those who can afford such an item usually have more practical things to spend on. See Chapter 6, Between Adventures, which we will go and look at in just a sec. I'm actually going to open that. In your campaign, magic items might be prevalent enough that adventurers can buy and sell them with some effort. Magic items might be for sale in bazaars or auction houses in fantastical locations, such as the City of Brass, the planar metropolis of Sigil, or even in more ordinary cities. Sale of magic items might be highly regulated, accompanied by a thriving black market. Artificers might craft items for use by military forces or adventurers, as they do in the world of Eberron. You might also allow characters to craft their own magic items, as discussed in Chapter 6. So let's talk about that, right? So that's the mentality of 5th edition. That's not the mentality of every edition of Dungeons & Dragons. That's the mentality of 5th edition. Magic items are so rare, they aren't available for purchase. Common magic items, yeah, probably. Other ones, as they state here, should be more similar for fine art in the real world. Invitation-only auctions and a tendency to attract thieves. Think of any heist movie where they've had like a very fine piece of art, right? They're going to put it up for auction, and then the thieves in the heist are going to try to steal it because it's so fantastical, it's so rare, people need to have it. Okay, so one, I understand that that's the thing. I've played a lot of 5th edition in my time. And I feel like everybody I know runs the game where you can go to a magic item shop and you can buy magic items. People just put those in there for whatever reason. I think it's because of either previous editions, what they're used to in video games and RPGs and MMOs and things where you can go to a place and sell all the magic items you got and buy new magic items. And that makes sense in people's head. And probably because, and again, I can't speak for 4th edition, but because up until this point, magic items, at least in my understanding from Dungeons & Dragons, again, 3.5 as my area of expertise, magic items had a set gold cost in the Dungeon Master's Guide or whatever book they were in. It tells you this is how much it is to buy them, and this is how much it is to craft them, and what other things you can do. And the game was designed with wealth in buy level in place so that it was assumed that if you hit 10th level, you would have an equivalency of this much gold, which then you could turn into magic items and buy things. And the game was balanced in such a way that enemies would have significantly higher AC, but you could buy magic items to boost up your attack and things like that. And the game was balanced around that thriving magic item community. And because in my mind, at least again, my perspective, that's what people expect. And that's what they're trying to find in 5th edition, and they don't have it. So that definition right there with the real world magic, invitation, that makes sense to me now, reading that and thinking that over as how 5th edition works. My problem with that is pre-written adventures, it would be my guess. Not all of them, but certain ones when you're like just out adventuring, there's a fair amount of magic items that you find in your time adventuring. If you're, not including homebrew items where like in a homebrew campaign where the DM can do whatever they want. But let's say you sit down to play like Lost Mines of Phandelver, for example, right? You're going to find a whole bunch of magic items. But when I thought about it, having just recently run it again for my family, they're like, this is a legendary longsword that belonged to some ancient hero, and things like that. But then there's like rando dead dwarf, has magic boots. But there's a fair amount of magic items just in that campaign, and if that's your introduction to D&D, you'd see that many magic items, you might think, okay, this is a pretty commonplace thing. And then again, if you're like, okay, well, we have these items that we just got, all these cool things, but no one really wants to use or can use these items, what do we do with them? And then you're like, well, how do I sell them? And then we get into the problem we're in. So let's go to chapter 6, Between Adventures, and talk about that. So there is a section for downtime activities, and within that, we will see crafting a magic item. There's a section here. Magic items to DM's purview, they can decide to craft them. It's a lengthy, expensive task. To start, a character must have a formula that describes the construction. They must also be a spellcaster with spell slots and must be able to cast any spells the item can produce. So if it's a wand of magic missiles, you need to be able to cast magic missile. You must meet a level minimum determined by the item's rarity, as shown in the crafting magic items table. So if you wanted to craft an uncommon magic item, like the wand of magic missile, you need 500 gold pieces in creation cost. You need to be at minimum 3rd level. You need to be an arcane caster with spell slots and the ability to cast magic missile. It says that same character can make a +1 weapon, another uncommon item, no particular spell required. It is, so that's that. You can decide that certain items might also require special materials. For example, a character might need alchemist supplies to brew a particular potion, or a formula for a flame tongue might include a weapon be forged with lava. This is, again, very much letting the DM decide it. There's no hard and fast rules on it, which is a whole nother discussion we could have. Item has a creation cost, again, associated with that table. Character engaged in crafting makes progress in 25 gold piece increments, spending that amount for each day of work until the total cost is paid. Characters assumed to work for 8 hours. An uncommon magic item takes 20 days and 500 gold pieces. You are free to adjust the costs to better suit your campaign. If a spell will be produced by the same magic, if a spell will be produced by the item being created, the creator must expend 1 spell slot of that spell's level for each day throughout the creation process. If the item will be able to produce the spell only once, such as a spell scroll, the components are consumed. Otherwise, the components are consumed each day, or otherwise it will be once for a scroll. Multiple characters can combine these efforts to create a magic item. Each character can contribute spells, spell slots, components, as long as everyone participates during the entire crafting process. Each character can contribute 25 gold pieces worth of effort for each day. Normally, a character who undertakes these activities can create the magic item is defined in the treasure section, but you can create your own. It's also interesting to me that based on this, someone with no ability of forging or creating a standard sword could just, by the way this is defined, make a magic longsword, even though they don't know how to make a regular sword. And then we have selling magic items here, another section. So for each saleable item, the character must make a DC 20 investigation check to find buyers. Another character can use their downtime to assist in that research. On a failed check, no buyers found for 10 days. On a successful check, a buyer is found after a number of days based on the item's rarity in this table below. A character can attempt to find buyers for multiple magic items at once, although it requires multiple investigation checks. For example, if a character finds a buyer for a common magic item in 2 days and an uncommon in 5 days, they fail to find a buyer for a rare item up for grabs. The search takes 10 days and so on. Each character can, for each item a character wishes to sell, they roll percentile dice to consult the selling magic item table, applying a modifier based on the item's rarity. They can also make a persuasion check to add to that roll. And here you can see you can't sell legendary items. Here's the amount that you could, the base price, days to find a buyer, and modifier rolls, and then selling 1/10 the price, 1/4 the price, half the price, full price, or 1.5 times the price. That's that. And I don't think we have a section on buying magic items. We just have on selling and crafting. Yeah. So then if we go to Xanathar's guide, they had downtime revisited was what it was called. And we have buying a magic item, which we didn't have before. If you looked, we had crafting and we had selling. So now we have buying. And they changed the rules up a little bit. Finding magic item to purchase requires at least 1 work week of effort and 100 gold pieces in expenses. Spending more time and more money increases your chance of finding a high quality item. And then next up is resolution. So a character seeking to buy a magic item under the resolution section makes a persuasion check to determine the quality of the seller found. So you can see it's kind of a revision of the previous one. +1 bonus for each work week beyond the first they spent seeking a seller. +1 bonus for every additional 100 gold pieces spent on the search to a maximum of 10. The monetary cost includes a wealthy lifestyle for a buyer must impress potential business partners. As shown on the buying magic items table, the total check dictates which table in the DMG that you can roll on. And then it says as further to upon option to reflect the availability of items, you can apply a -10 for low magic campaigns or a +10 for high. Using the magic item price table, you then assign prices to the available items based on their rarity, have the price of any consumable item such as a potion or scroll, and then you kind of have the final say. And it says you can include desired. If so, include desired among items for sale, like a check of 10 or higher is common, and so on. So you can see here's the check. If you want to get to the magic item table I, it's a 41 plus on the roll. And then here's the table. A little bit more refined, but still kind of in that same frame. So you're pretty much in the 100 to 600 gold pieces for an uncommon magic item. Here it was 101 to 500, so it's a little more on the swingy side. Again, 1d4 plus 1 could be 2 times, so you'd have 20,000 gold pieces to 50,000 gold pieces for a very rare. Again, higher end, not as much, to deal with. And then they had that whole complications table of, interesting things can happen from that. We were also given additional crafting item things here, so we can have stuff regarding what you can craft as far as crafting magic items. So creating a magic item takes more than just time. Potions of healing and spell scrolls are now much easier in the brewing a potion and scribing a scroll section. And then it talks about magic item ingredients table suggests the challenge rating of a creature that the characters need to face to acquire the items required, and it lists them here. If appropriate, pick a monster or location which is thematic. For example, creating Mariner's armor might require the essence of a water weird. A Staff of Charming might require the cooperation of an Arcanoloth. Staff of Power might do something to do with an Androsphinx. In addition, facing the creature, creating a magic item comes with a gold piece cost. Those values, work weeks are here listed, and then a gold piece cost. So now we have like a magic item piece from the range for the creature. Then we have work weeks and cost. And we have complications that can be associated with it. To complete a magic item, they need to have whatever tool efficiency is appropriate, which fixes my issue from the last thing about not knowing how to craft a sword, but you could craft a magic one. And proficiency in the Arcana skill, making Arcana a slightly better skill if your DM allows this. And again, complications associated with those. There are much easier versions to do crafting healing potions of healing. Here are the associated time frames and the gold costs. And all you need to do is have proficiency with the herbalism kit to do so. So that, I think, was a better call, making it that much easier. Scribing a scroll, very similar. To scribe a scroll, you must have proficiency in the Arcana check and any material components associated with them. And then here is the time frame. And then here is the gold piece cost. Not too much, it just takes time and money. And then that's significantly easier. And again, I applaud the updates to both healing potions and scrolls. And then we have a new selling a magic item table, slightly different than before. A character can find a buyer for one magic item by spending 1 work week and 25 gold pieces to spread the word for the desired sale. A character must pick one item at a time to sell. They make a persuasion check to determine how the offer goes off, and then use the base or magic item base prices and magic item offer table to determine the sale prices. So here are your base prices right here, 100 for common, 400 for uncommon, and so on. And then based on the kind of offer percentage here, based on the check, the persuasion check is the kind of what you'll get. 50% of base price, 100% of base price, 150% of the base price. And then any complications associated with that. So I do think Xanathar has definitely improved it, and I feel like because of the way things were received in the DMG, they revisited the downtime options and added something like for buying a magic item. We did have one other addition, and that was, actually I guess technically 2, which I'm gonna go reference in a sec, but first would be Eberron. So it says, thanks to Dragon Shards, common magic items, including the ones in Xanathar's guise, are readily available in Corvair. And it says right here, buying common magic items. In Eberron, common magic items can be found for sale in most communities. The DM determines the stock available, or the DM has the shoppers make an intelligence check as a group to find a shop or peddler. DC is 10 for a city, 15 for a town, or 20 in a village. If the check fails, at least 24 hours must pass before they can look again. The DM sets the price of common magic items or determines it randomly, 2d4 times 10 GP or half as much for a consumable potion or scroll. Creating common magic items here, it says normally a magic item in Eberron is created using the crafting magic rules in the DMG or Xanathars, but if you have a dragon shard, you can do so more easily and create a common magic item. You must have proficiency in Arcana and the tools to create a non-magical version of whatever it is. A potion of healing requires herbalism kit. A spellcaster can scribe a scroll if they're proficient in Arcana. And then creating common magic items table states how much time and money is associated with that. So spell scroll, potion of healing, and then any other common magic item. 32 hours and 50 GP. Again, half for consumable items like a scroll or scroll. I don't know why that's there. Oh, it's a spell scroll of a cantrip and a regular potion of healing. And then these are halved for higher level potions of healing and higher scrolls. And then there's a crafting complications table here as well. So Eberron had the concept of common magic items. Therefore, meaning, I don't get me wrong, I think the common magic items that exist in 5th edition are phenomenal. They're actually some of my favorite things out there because they're low scale magic items that can do cool things, but like a low scale magic item that is a magic sword is still a magic sword for the purposes of overcoming damage resistance. So if you're looking at it from a mechanical standpoint, still good. Magical armor, for example, won't be affected by a rust monster and things like that. So there is all of that. And I thought as I was reading through this of one additional thing that we can go and take a look at. And that is the Tomb of Annihilation adventure. And that is Port Nyanzaru, because Port Nyanzaru has magic items for sale. And that was something that kind of blew me away because the concept that we talked about before of magic items not being sellable. Cholt is, so first of all, Port Nyanzaru was like the one major civilization in the whole continent of Cholt. It is a far south area. So it's it's remote in the grand scheme of things, yet you can just go and buy magic items from the princes. So if we go to, where are they? The Merchant Prince's Villas. Where are we? I'm trying to figure out. Oh, buying a special item. So, or is this just these? No, where the hell is it? Here it is. Magic items for sale. Okay, so the different princes have different things for sale. So if we look down here, you can see that you can buy a common potion for 80 gold pieces, an uncommon potion for 300, a first level spell scroll for 100, a second level spell scroll for 550. If we go and look at Xanathar's for the base prices, they're a little on the, well, a first level or an uncommon magic or potion. So the scroll, they're a little bit on the high side. And there are complications for those. All right, I'm back in Xanathar's here. But somewhere in here, I could have sworn, maybe I'm missing it. Is it just, where did it go? There's definitely was a section on, you could just buy, they had a price for, oh, here it is. Magic shields and magic items for sale. So you can see right here, you can buy +1 ammunition per piece for 50 gold pieces, a +1 shield for 450 gold pieces, a +1 dagger, or Yikalwa, which is a Cholton item, for 500 gold pieces. But there was an option where you could just go and buy certain +1 items, which is like something that was unheard of, right? That was never a thing you could do before. But it just so happens that this one merchant in Cholt, again, a very distant place, has the opportunity for you to just buy, flat out buy magic items, +1 magic items for 500 gold pieces. And then again, you have stuff for buying potions and scrolls. So that one kind of threw me off guard a little bit because it had the ability to just buy them with a set price. And then again, as we discussed, Eberron had different prices. But again, if you have dragon shards, which the whole world of Eberron is slightly more magical. So I did want to comment on my last video where I referenced this. The whole reason I'm doing this is because Dan Dillon from Wizards of the Coast had happened to comment on my YouTube video, and I wanted to just touch on it because I thought it was worth mentioning. So, says, don't forget about the everyday magic items section in Eberron, Rising from the Last War, which we did discuss because he actually referenced it. That's why I brought it up. When most people talk about buying and selling magic items, and what I suspect that you're getting at, referring to the existing 5e rules not hitting the mark, they're talking about magic shops, which we typically are. That's not what the rules in the DMG or Xanathars are for, because 5e assumes there are no such things as magic shops. Which common potion, with common potions or potion, with common potions of healing being the exception. Those rules are for arranging things like auctions or specific private buyers/sellers, not taking your bushel of +1 longswords to trade in for armor of resistance. Eberron expands on it because that setting has a much more ubiquitous, has more ubiquitous magic. And then in short, no, the 3e magic item economy doesn't exist in 5e, and that's by design. Smiley face. So let's talk about that. So that, I mean, that's Wizards of the Coast, right? That's a person who works at Wizards of the Coast saying it. So that's going to give us probably the most distinctive answer we're going to get, is that it's by design. There are no magic item shops. So that, again, all of that still stands true to what I said at the beginning. There are no magic item shops, and that's not how 5th edition is designed. That being said, as I've also stated, every game I've ever played in, regardless of DM, with the exception of Adventures League, because there are rules for that in Adventures League for dealing with magic items, even though at a certain point, certain factions just allowed you to buy certain magic items were just accessible to the faction en masse. Which is, again, more easily purchasable magic items, but they've changed those rules since then. But every DM I've ever played with, there's at least one magic item shop that they all know. And I've done it in my games too, so I'm guilty of it as well. Because again, I feel like it just clicks in our brains for those to exist. But as stated, that's not how 5th edition is designed. Take it or leave it, that's, again, by design. We went over the existing rules that are out there. And there's one more thing I wanted to talk to you about, because this is constantly quoted and I thought it was worth mentioning. And that is a document that I will link in the description called Sane Magic Item Prices. And it's a PDF that was put together by a whole bunch of people. It started on Giant in the Playground, which is a really good forum that I really like for Dungeons and Dragons. It went to Reddit r/D&D Next. It was on the N-World forums. And basically, someone took it all and compiled it into a PDF. And I believe, as of me saying this, it only exists for the magic items in the Dungeon Master's Guide. But maybe there's alterations that you guys can tell me about. And I'm sure, well, we'll talk more at the end. But as you can see here, there are potions for consumables. Not just consumables like scrolls and potions, but different ammunition, filters of love, I guess, is a potion, but the feather tokens, Qual's feather tokens that are consumable. We have actual prices. The page you can find it, its actual rarity, and the associated price. Then it has a section on combat items. And you'll see that the items scale in price all throughout, right? So a vicious weapon's only 315 gold pieces. Adamantine armor is 500. Mithril armor is 800. I would probably switch those personally. But Sword of Life Stealing, 1,000, plus one weapon, 1,000. A Javelin of Lightning is 1,500. You can see the associated prices. Ion Stones and all these different things. Then there's all the non-combat magic items here. And then there's a little note here on discount items. And again, just like you want to buy Plate Armor of Etherealist, they're saying 48,000 gold. It's a legendary magic item. Items for summoning. And then they have game-changing items, they call them here. Things like the Figurines of Wondrous Power. Any of the things that will be like Deck of Many Things, I think is probably on here. And then all items listed alphabetically at the end. You can go through all of that. And items that won't be priced. Candle of Invocation, because we've learned a thing or two from 3.5, accurate, and I could talk about that in another video if we really want to. Deck of Many Things, because lol random. A Freedy Bottle, because wishes. Iron Flask, because wishes. Ring of 3 Wishes, because wishes. Luck Blade, because wishes. Well of Many Worlds, because if the DM wants to give you a TARDIS, you'll have one, and they don't want you buying one. If you don't, you won't. Wand of Wonder, because lol random. Ring of Ginny Summoning. It's pretty much everything from game-changing list in a single item. I can't see anyone selling these. Bag of Tricks, creating permanent living creatures, does absolutely silly things to the economy. That has since changed because the creatures aren't living permanently. They do end at the end of a long rest. Tome of Still Tongue, no wizard would ever sell this. Manual and Tomes +2. If these come up, the DM is probably going to give them to the party as a level up type thing. Giant Strength breaks bounded accuracy. Potion of Giant Strength breaks bounded accuracy. Rod of Resurrection is plot device. Helm of Brilliance, lol random. Bag of Beans, lol random. Staff of the Magi, too much power. Manual of Golems, this is a blueprint, not an item. Use whatever rules into pricing blueprints for your campaign and crafting the golem and then any cursed items. So this is what I am constantly quoted by everybody on the internet. Go use Sane magic item pricing. That's the best thing that exists out there. That'll give you a good frame of reference for any new magic items that come out in subsequent books and other things. You can use those as a frame of reference. This is the entire DMG list and then use other, use that as a judging point. But let me know, this is my call to action to all of you. For everybody watching this video, if you know of a better way that you like, whether it's a system like what exists in the books, where it's a rolling table or some other thing like that, and you know of a great one that you've seen on the internet on the DM's Guild or otherwise, leave it in the comments, leave a link, let people know. If you know of a better document on the DM's Guild, a PDF that's better, sane pricing, or a revamping of magic item pricing or whatever you want to do, leave them in the description below, leave comments, let everybody know, because obviously I've seen it enough from the fact that I'm making a third video in like 2 weeks about magic items, and my most popular top 10 videos were all about magic items. People have a big interest in magic items. It's no secret, right? More magic items is what everybody wants. It's one of the most popular pieces of any new book that comes out. People want new magic items. People want to be able to buy and sell them, even though, as I'm acknowledging, that's not how 5th edition is designed. People still want to do that because that's what they're used to. So if you have a better idea or ways to go about selling or buying magic items, please go ahead and leave those in the comments down below. I will link the Sane magic item pricing PDF in the description as well if you'd like to go check that out. So that being said, thank you again to my patrons on Patreon for continuing to support me and this channel and voting for top 10s every Tuesday. And thank you to all of you for continuing to subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate the support, and it makes me keep doing what I'm doing. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.